My topic is higher order thinking in the classroom. Our objectives for this afternoon: to explain higher order thinking skills, abbreviation HOTS as it is known as, to explain a little bit about Bloom's taxonomy and how teachers are using it in class as well. So let us start with higher order thinking. What is higher order thinking? Does anybody want to give me an answer, or should I just continue? Does anybody like to pitch in?
You can continue, Ms. Mignona.
Okay, all right. Well, higher order thinking, questions that require us to think in a different way other than those questions that just require giving back information, just giving back the info that we have read. Why is higher order thinking important? Well, for students, it is crucial for their development, to prepare them, especially in our rapidly changing world. Higher order thinking helps them think in the right direction, helps them solve problems in a logical manner. It improves their presentation and communication skills, evaluates and choose the best solutions and adjust as needed. Students become more self-reliant and independent learners. They improve their academic performance and achievement. They collaborate and learn from each other as well. They become active participants in their learning journey. Why are higher order thinking skills important to us teachers? Well, for us, we aim to create a greater appreciation of art and literature and to promote those essential skills like critical thinking and problem solving. And because of the high demand by employers, this is projected to be an increasingly in demand for the future. So this is important to us to inculcate in our learning. So did you know that approximately 80% of a teacher's day goes with just asking questions? Yeah, I'm sure you all ask a lot of questions, and 80% of the time we actually asking questions in the class. How many of you can remember just about how many questions you would ask in your class? Well, now that our periods have been cut down to 30 minutes, I would think there are more questions in the 30 minutes than we used to do in the 45 minutes that we had, because there's so much more that needs to be done and so little time to do it in. And a lot of these questions are crucial in our class and how students learn. What kinds of questions do we ask in class? 85% of these questions in class are low order thinking. These are stats that were taken. Only 15% of the questions are higher order thinking. Well, that's what we are doing at the moment, and many of us are guilty of that, but unfortunately, this is what is happening. Lower order questions, what are they? They involve questioning like what, who, when, how many. These are all easy questions with just maybe one answer, or something that info that they have taken in and they can give you straight away one word answer type questions. These are useful to check who has learned what you have told them as well. So these are questions that you would do quickly, randomly in class, just to make sure that they have knowledge of their previous lesson or maybe what we are going to do. Higher order questions, unfortunately, these are the open questions, questions that you need to ask them a little bit more explanation about what would happen if this was the scenario. How would you explain this if this had happened? What does that tell us or tell you about the story? What is wrong with this? These are all higher order questioning that we do use. Sometimes we are able to give students that opportunity to answer them and ask even more questions on top of these, but sometimes we don't. But these are actually essential to promote thinking skills, especially in our class and for the students. The purpose of our questioning, obviously to check on prior knowledge and understanding if they have learned what we've just done, to keep them actively involved and to keep them focused on what they are learning, to help students extend their thinking from concrete and factual to analytical. We also encourage reasoning and problem solving. That means giving them opportunities to openly express their ideas and thoughts and not having fear. To enable them to hear different explanations of materials by their peer. Also to evaluate student learning as well. So that is one of the main focuses of questioning in our classroom. What are the elements for effective questioning? First of all, we need to involve all our students. Very difficult to do it in today's classes, especially when we don't have response, especially when it's online teaching. Students are there, but they're not there. So it is very difficult to get all of them involved, but we try our best and encourage all of them so that they can think for themselves and they can become critical thinkers. Also, we try to deepen their understanding and not just scratch the surface of what they need to know. They need to have a deeper understanding of what is actually going on, and therefore we promote discussion because of that with the questioning, and this is how they are able to explore many more ideas. Teachers sometimes is interested in what student thinks and why, and not just the correct answer or what they're going to give us. Wait time is allowed, but sometimes it's very difficult when we think about how we ask our questions in class, and we'll come to that. Remember, effective questioning should be, or usually should be, followed by valid feedback from the teacher so as to include more inquiry so that they can build up on this. This should include both closed questions and open questions. Closed questions so that they understand what they've been taught, and open questions to promote that higher order thinking and to extend their learning. Results of the effective questioning is that students develop a fuller understanding, they become more confident in themselves, and they link ideas with existing knowledge as well. They are allowed to explain it themselves, so they extend their understanding in this way. Assessment for learning and wait time, like I said. Do we provide enough time for our students to answer? Now, this is something that a lot of us are guilty with. We often ask many questions in class, and sometimes, or most of the times, we don't usually give them the full chance to answer because basically there's no time in our curriculum. We don't have time to stuff those little moments in. So we either ask them and expect a quick answer, and many a times when they don't answer, we just kind of feedback the question or the answers for them, which is something that we need to change. So we need to try and ascertain how we're going to provide enough time for students to be able to answer, as well as gain a little bit insight on what they could ask even more. And that will instill critical thinking or high order thinking. So how do I achieve this wait time? Encourage speculation. That means delay answers before you jump in. Try and get them to ask more, like, what more do you think you would need to do to answer this question? Why do you think you would need to do this? If it is necessary, discuss it in pairs before you go any further and see if students have the same rapport, if they are on the same level. Many of them won't be. So in order to have a discussion, you kind of bring them onto the same level as you want to, as some of the students who are already involved in that critical thinking. You can ask them, what might this answer be to this? Or a correct answer that you give to just any discussion, it kind of closes discussion and puts a stop to it right there. So you get half the answer and you cannot prompt even more thought about the topic or allow them curiosity about it, because you have an answer already and they think that's what's needed and you have to move on for the rest of the lesson. So how do I teach higher order thinking in my class? How are you going to teach it? Well, obviously, higher order thinking makes greater cognitive processing demands on students. And this type of thinking can be unsurprisingly difficult to both learn and for us to teach as well. So I just have about 10 strategies that I'm going to share with you quickly about higher order thinking. The first one, help determine what higher order thinking is. Often we tell students that we need to do higher order thinking, but honestly, they don't know what that is. They think it's some kind of thinking, but they don't understand what it entails. So we need to explain it to them, what it is and why they need it. Help them understand that they have strengths and they can overcome their challenges just by thinking about something a little bit more. You can do this by showing them how to ask good questions themselves, right? That will actually lead us to my next strategy that I'm going to share with you. Connect concepts. Now, sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's difficult to connect one concept to another, right? When we are doing our teaching in class, we try to associate two or more different subjects so that they are allowed to connect with these. This level of thinking actually helps them to make other connections wherever possible. And this makes them gain more understanding. For example, let's just say they're talking about celebrations. An even broader concept would be holidays. And if you connect those two, they think of all the holidays, they think of all the celebrations in between and what exactly it entails. So this creates further thinking, further questioning in their minds and why or what happens during that. So that's another strategy that we could use. Some of us are doing it and some of us, well, we try, but it is difficult with certain subjects. I know that. The third one is teach students to infer. Teach students to make inferences by giving them real world examples. Sometimes we're sitting in the class and we think about things that students cannot refer to at all to, and it makes them difficult to understand exactly what they should do. So you can start by giving them a picture, maybe of people standing in a line in a soup kitchen. Ask them to look at the picture and focus on the details, and then ask them to make inferences based on what they are seeing in the picture. Sometimes we need concrete evidence for them in order to gain a little bit more analytical understanding of something. Another way to teach younger students about how to infer is to actually like easy concepts. I know in cycle 1 we use the weather. So we ask them about the weather. They can actually go outside, check the weather. They can think about this because they know there's different types of weather. So what are they doing in the different types of weather? What do they use? Ask them to put on raincoat and boots and go outside when it's absolutely hot. And ask them what would they think about it? What does it look like? Just so that they can inquire a little bit more. Now, students do have this in them and all they need is that little nudge, just a little nudge, a little question, a little push so that they could actually expand this in their little mind. Right, so the fourth one is encourage questioning. You will notice in a classroom, we have some students that ask questions all the time, and sometimes they even tire you with their questions. But then there are some students who you don't even hear their voices at all, nothing at all, not even one question even to answer or to say anything else, to say that I'm here present, ma'am. A classroom is where students should feel free to ask anything, whether they're going to get positive reactions or negative reactions from their peers or from the peers or their teachers. This is some place that they should be comfortable and they should be able to feel creative so that they can indulge in this questioning. So it is very important for the teacher itself to make that environment very comfortable for them so that even if they had to ask a question that is totally off the topic and not inclined to what we are doing, but that child would not feel that there is something wrong with me asking this question. So ask them, encourage them to ask these questions. And for the same reason, if you can't get to their question during class time, show them that you can answer it, that they can actually answer themselves. Give them ideas about how they should answer it themselves, what they should think of and how they can have the answer for that same question. And they can share it with you maybe the following day. So encouraging questioning is actually a vital part in our lessons. The next one, using graphic organizers. Graphic organizers provide students with a nice way to frame their thoughts in an organized manner. Many of us do this, and we actually find it easier so that students are catching the concepts that we want to by literally pushing it into these little graphic organizers here, these mind maps that we have that make them see literally what is it that we are putting. Like in this, if we had winter, we would talk about the snow or the cold weather and the rain and the boots and the jackets that you have to wear. This is all that they can see basically from the concept. So they understand the relationship between all these things that you're putting in a mind. So it kind of makes them understand that this is what is happening. This helps students to develop a habit of connecting concepts all the time. So this is actually a good one, graphic organizers. Then teaching them problem-solving strategies. Teach students to use a step-by-step method for solving problems. How do we do that? This way of ordered thinking, they will help solve problems faster and more easily. Encourage students to use alternative methods to solve problems, as well as offer them different problem-solving methods. Now, many times in math and science, you are able to use different types of methods so that you could get more answers and maybe even inquire a little bit more about this and extend the inquiries further than that, or what was actually given to them. This actually increases the higher order thinking skills that they have inculcated in them. They realize that they can ask more, even though they've asked more than what they used to. They can still ask more than this and they will still get an answer. So it teaches them that there's always an alternative method. So don't just settle for what they have. So they can get more strategies to solve their problems in the future. The next one is encourage creative thinking. Creative thinking is when students, they invent in their minds, right? They design what they are thinking. Many students, and I'm sure if you've seen some drawings of your students, you would probably think, what on earth is going on with the student? But these are the things that are playing in their minds. So using these creative senses helps students process and understand all the information that we are throwing at them even better. Somehow they have their own thinking processes that they are able to process this and they can understand it better with what's going on in their mind. Research shows that when students use creative higher order thinking skill, it actually increases their understanding for sure. So encourage students to think out of the box. That means not everything that we are throwing at them has to be the same or the correct thing. If they have something that's an alternative as well, and if it works well, then why not? We can do this too. Whatever is taught in the class is not cut in stone, so you can extend this and give them that confidence to think that what they have created, their creative thinking, what they've imagined in their heads, it's actually something that's going to be very useful in class as well. So we need to encourage this creative thinking for them. Using mind movies. Well, it's very similar as well. This is just planning a whole movie in their head so that they can understand when concepts that are being learned are very difficult. Some students take a very long time to grasp them. So encouraging students to create a movie in their mind, that means tell them to close their eyes, think of a picture like it was a movie playing, and ask them, what do you think would happen next in this movie, right? This way of higher order thinking truly helps them understand in a very powerful and unique way. I know sometimes it can be time consuming and we don't have that luxury of the extended time that we are talking about all these strategies to be done in class, but once in a while you get these little situations where you are able to do this, and it's surprisingly enough that students come up with the most beautiful concepts and ideas. This gives them that power to think in a very unique way. So mind movies are actually brilliant, especially when you want to know what's going on in a little child's mind. The next one is to teach students to elaborate their answers. I know this can be difficult sometimes because most of the time in class, we give them a question, they answer, and that's it. There's nothing more to that, absolutely nothing more. So what do? We need to ask them to elaborate on this. Higher order thinking requires students to understand the concept, not to repeat or memorize it, but to understand it with further knowledge. Encourage students to elaborate on their answers by asking the right question. So if you've asked a question and they've answered you, what was the color of that animal? They'll give you the answer. Elaborate on that. Ask 2 more questions on that, and you can give other examples where you are able to ask even another question on top of getting an answer for the one question that you asked. So making them ask the right questions is actually helping them explain their thoughts in a little bit more detail. And most of the time students have lots of details that they'd like to share with us, but we don't have time to actually incorporate this in. And some of the times they're also scared that their contribution might not be exactly what was needed. So this as well, they are a bit reluctant to share their ideas. By this way, encouraging them to elaborate that actually explains their thoughts. This gains a little bit more confidence in them as well, and so they are able to move on and answer a little bit more. The last one, teach QAR, that's question answer relationships. Teach students to label the type of question that's being asked and then to use that information to help them formulate an answer. Sometimes students must decipher if the answer can actually be found in the text in what they are doing or online, or should they refer to prior knowledge to answer it. Now, this strategy has been found very effective for higher order thinking because students become aware of the relationship between the information in the text and their prior knowledge, which helps them actually to realize that this strategy to use, they need this in order to seek an answer in the first place. So question-answer relationships are important so that they are able to see this link between the question itself, their prior knowledge, and how they are going to get to the answer finally. I hope maybe those will actually help you in some way in your class. Just a little bit about Bloom's taxonomy, which I know you all have done to death. We all know the steps of Bloom's and we all are using them a lot in our classes. Knowledge, understand, apply, analyze, synthesize, evaluate. So I just wanted to share with you again a little bit more about each step, right? Knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation. These are all key verbs and tasks that show learning and how we can implement. So knowledge, identify, define, label, match. That's just to understand. Comprehension, explain, predict, compare, contrast, retell. I'm sharing with you verbs, right, that you would use in class. Application, apply, determine, develop, illustrate, present. Analysis, analyze, distinguish, infer, investigate. Synthesis, imagine, create, compose, hypotheses, judge, test, formulate. Evaluation would be assess, agree, appreciate, debate, critique, defend, evaluate. Now, these are all things that we are doing on a daily basis in our class. We ask all of these questions. We include all of this. The first one, knowledge, taking information and recalling it. We do this every single day, every single minute in the class. What happened after? How many was it? Who was it? Who spoke to you? Find the meaning of it. Which one is true, right? Just to understand if they have understood all the information that you have given them. Comprehension, giving meaning to information at a basic level. If they read a text, can they write it in their own words? Do they understand it enough? What do you think? You could ask them. What is the main idea? Which is something we do on an ongoing basis. Main idea of the story, characters of the story, the setting of the story, all of that, just to see if they understand what it is. Can you distinguish between these? Can you provide an example by what you mean? That is checking if they have comprehension of the basic. Application, that means how do you apply this? Do you know where an instance is? Can you apply this information to an experience of your own? Usually asking students that brings up a lot of stories. So this is very important. What facts could change if this and this happened? Would this be information useful if you had to do this and this? Questions like that would actually motivate them to think more. Could this have happened in another situation? You could ask them that just to see if they can apply what they have learned in a new situation. Analysis, breaking down information into parts and relate parts to a whole. How is this similar to so and so? What event could not have happened if this did not happen? What did that occur? What are some of the problems? What was the turning point in the story? These are all basically questions that we ask on an ongoing basis in class, just to see if they can break down the information that we have given them into little parts and as a whole. The fifth one, synthesis. Combine existing elements to create something new. Can you design something to do this? What is a possible solution to this problem? What would happen if I did this? Can you think of something new and unusual uses for so and so? How would you devise a way to do this? Can you develop a proposal that would change this? These are all questions that we ask when we think of how we would create something new for them. So combining the existing elements to create something new. Evaluation, most importantly, making an objective judgment about the value of something. So is there a better solution to this? We would ask, judge the value of so and so, defend your position about this. How would you feel if this happened? What changes would you recommend and why would you? What do you think about so-so? Why do you think that? Very important. With what, we always have the whys after that. If they have given you an answer, it's always why? Why did you do this? There's always an answer for the why, which we need to encourage students to elaborate on. Our most common pitfalls on questioning is asking too many questions at once. And we do this all the time. Too many questions because we need to know this, we need to know that. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? How did you do this? How did you do that? And then often we don't give them that time to answer, like I said. That wait time, many of us either give them the answer or we jump to something else. Asking difficult questions without building up to it. Sometimes we ask questions and they have no idea how to respond because they don't actually know what was before that. So in order to get to a difficult question, you have to build up on a situation, on a scenario, so that as they get to that point, they will understand what it is to building up to a difficult question instead of just jumping into a difficult question. Asking yourself and answering it, biggest pitfall we have, and that's because sometimes, well, most of the time we don't have that extra time, that luxury of the extra time, and sometimes we are scared as teachers that they will get the wrong information. So we think it's going to be the wrong information, but really we need to allow students to develop themselves. Most of the time we focus on small number of students because these are the students that keep on participating in class activities. They're always in the discussions, they're always talking, they're telling us what to do, and A lot of times these students don't allow other students to talk because they want to talk all the time. So we focus on them because they're talking, and we often forget those that are in class and don't talk. As much as we try, I know that you try in your classes, but we all have those few students that you can sit and break your head, but they are not going to answer anything. So because of that, we take advantage of this and we focus on those small number of pupils that are always involved in this. So that's a big downfall. We try to amend that. Dealing ineffectively with wrong answers or misconceptions. Sometimes a student gives us the wrong answer or they don't understand something, and the way we deal with that situation often has a lot of repercussions later on because of that one question that they have answered incorrectly or they don't understand about, and the critique that comes with that. Some students are unable to handle that pressure and they're unable to deal with how it has been reacted to. So we need to be very careful when dealing with the wrong answers. Don't just tell somebody, oh, don't you understand this? This is not right. What were you thinking? Where were you listening? Things like that often come out from our mouths, and we say this to students like, why weren't they listening? Why don't you know this? But I've said this 100 times and you still don't know it. That is one way we need to stop, because sometimes a student really doesn't get it. And we find that a little bit difficult to understand, but there are students who take time in grasping concepts and they take time in understanding even a question that is asked. They sometimes need help with just the question itself before they can actually give you that answer. And like I said, our wait time is something that has to allow for this. The only benefits for the students is when we are doing this, they know what to expect with their learning outcomes, right? They know that they should know that everybody in class, we all make mistakes, so nobody should be badgered for the little mistakes that we made. Everybody should be given a fair chance and they should be confident enough in their classes. Their teacher should make it comfortable enough for them so that they understand this and they accept it and they are able to move forward. They know that I don't always do the same thing, so they could be talking, moving, traveling or drawing, working in a group, offering a variety of strategies to students at all different times makes them aware that you are not going to be just taking the same thing. You are going to allow them to answer or to do what they need to. So your success criteria in class, students often know how to reach this because they understand when you are doing this in your class, how they should get to it, how they should ask why or what or when. The wait time, right? That most importantly. And those that have no hands, that means they don't involve them in the class. They should know that these students are not going to be questioned all the time. We're going to give others a chance as well. So this is very important for students to realize this in a class. Often they think that that's the favorite students. They know all the answers, they're going to answer and that's it. That's what's going to happen. So these are some of the benefits that come out of these effective questionings for students, right? So they know their learning outcomes, they understand peer assessment better, they understand that's going to be a variety of strategies that will be put in front of them. They understand that they know how to reach their success criteria and that it won't always be the same. So they need to be ready for just about anything to happen in class. So when you are planning your questions, in order to use questioning to improve your learning, you need to remember, formulate different kinds of questions. All the different kinds of questions that you can think of, include this in your planning. Write down the main questions that you're going to use. So don't only think about it, write it down as well and use them in class. Start with the simple questions and then you can progress to more challenging questions. That's often helps. It's better understanding, and students can build up to what is being taught. If you have any questions now, you can ask me. I hope you've gathered at least a little bit from my presentation and understood it. If there was anything that was unclear to you, and if you'd like me to